Hi, I'm Kelly Rowlett-Presgrave. I'm president and CEO of Work With Your Hands, and we are so proud to be a sponsor of Power Women of the Trades podcast. You can reach us at workwithyourhands.com. Kelly at workwithyourhands.com is my email.
At Relentless Digital, we believe in breaking barriers and driving innovation. That's why we are extremely proud to sponsor the Power Women of the Trades podcast, supporting the voices and success of women in the home service industry. Together, we're creating a future where talent shines, regardless of gender, and diversity thrives. Join our journey at relentless-digital.com and always be relentless in your pursuit of excellence.
This episode of Power Women of the Trades is also brought to you by Forrest Perry of Forrest Perry Digital Marketing. Want to generate more leads for your service business? Trust his team to deliver quality new customer leads and protect your brand online. Check out perrymarketing.com today.
Hello everyone. We want to give a quick shout out to our amazing partner, Rilla, the game changer in the home service industry. Rilla's virtual ride-along software means no more physical ride-alongs. With Rilla, you can coach your team virtually 100 times faster and boost your close sale rates like never before. Don't miss out. Join the movement today and watch your sales soar. Visit rilla.com/PWT to learn more.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. We are in
Dallas, Texas, for the Women in HVACR conference.
And we are here today with Shauna Brown from On the Double Heating and Cooling in Lubbock. Is that correct?
That's right.
Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, Texas.
It's funny because we've traveled so much. I keep forgetting where we're at. I'm like, and we're in, Heather's like, Dallas, Texas. So Shauna and I have been Facebook friends for several years. And I was trying to find a new hook, like not super excited, anyways. So we're thrilled to have you on because you're just one of those other stories of what I've gotten to watch on social media, and you have done a lot of great things, and through your marketing, your branding, you rebranded. And so tell us a little bit, how'd you get into this space?
Well, I've actually been involved in the trades or around the trades my entire life. So my father and my uncle have a heating and air conditioning business in a smaller town in Central West Texas. So they've been doing that for 45 years.
Wow.
And so, but I was not involved in it because I have two brothers. And so the guys got to go to work and stuff. And I did books a little bit here and there when I was a little bit older, but I was exposed to it and around it all the time. They were talking earlier about Manual J and all this. I'm like,
low calculations.
Yeah. So I'm like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And the other ladies were like, what are you talking about? I was like,
well, we know what that is.
Yeah. So I know, I've been around it all my life. And so they really run it by old school, but it was my parents were both high school graduates, and my dad hustled, and they've run a wonderful business for 45 years with a wonderful name in the community, and they're profitable, and it's still going.
Yeah. We were just talking about branding, and it's that consistency and that longevity.
Yeah. I mean, there's too much family involved with that for us to be involved with it. So
I understand.
Yeah. And we didn't have a plan to necessarily have a business in the heating and air conditioning industry. But after I got married, my husband got involved, or he was in the custom home building industry growing up with his father. And so he already had that exposure, and then got involved with heating and cooling, learned that through my father's company after we got married.
Is that how he kind of went that direction out of home building?
Yeah, it wasn't
home building so broad.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But he had been exposed to, the trades. Did up super fast.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It just kind of was a happenstance thing. And then we moved to Lubbock for some better opportunities. And he worked in the commercial side of the industry for a big commercial company and traveled all over. And then we built a house. And when we built the house, my husband was like, I want to do the HVAC for it. And so we did that. And the builder was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Would you like to do this on the side for me? Whatever. So the company that he worked for said, yeah, we don't mind you doing doing residential work on the side. And so that's like the really long, short version of that. Ended up slowly building that up over time and went into business for ourselves. We thought would be a great idea.
Yeah, jokes on all of us, right?
Jokes on all, yeah, absolutely. And I have a degree in Spanish and in business, and I was around, that entrepreneurial spirit my whole life. So we had no fear. And that's all I had done was business development after high school, after college and whatnot, other small businesses, completely different industries. And then we just thought, well, here we go. Well, let's do this. It was not really intentional or planned, and it just kind of happened. And then we gave it a name, and we named it Airtex because we were still using phone books at the time. So you want to pick a name with an A.
So it shows up first.
It shows up first. Yeah. That's right. It was like the strategy. And then, of course, over the years, we realized once we learned more about branding, that kind of thing, how it just didn't stick and it was confusing, and everything in West Texas is named something tech because we're Texas Tech University.
Yeah.
Or Tex or Air something or this, that. So that's what led us to.
Well, now phone books are antiquated.
Exactly. It was totally irrelevant. And so we just had to change with the times.
So how long have you guys been like going back to Airtex? How long?
He got his license in 2012.
Okay.
But as far as like full-time jobs and did this thing on the side for quite a few years. And then went full-time in 2016. We kind of don't count that year. There was something like I had a major health crisis and whatnot, but that's when we went into business for ourselves. And of course that would happen.
Right.
It's always like when you pull the trigger to move forward with something, you get like a segue.
Something. That was us in our story as well. Like when we went full-time in that same year, we went through a major custody battle. And so it was like, that wasn't in the plan when we made, but sometimes it's like being able to do both at the same time builds a bigger piece, like because you have no other choice but to survive at that point, right?
Well, entrepreneurs, we have to pivot. We have to like deal with adversity all the time and figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes us entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We can't help ourselves.
Right. So when did you guys
just refusal to fail?
Yeah.
Like we won't quit.
We won't quit.
That's right.
For sure. So when did you guys go and rebrand? Because you rebranded with Dan.
We did.
And
that was in 2022.
2022.
So
and then you went from Airtex to on
the double
okay.
heating and cooling.
And they've got these cute hummingbirds.
So hummingbird.
I know. I love it.
Yeah. We love it.
So how was the journey of rebranding?
Gosh, I mean, it's like nothing like you would expect, I think. Renaming is completely different, I think. Like that's a whole other thing. I mean, to keep your name and have a different look is one thing, but the renaming was much more challenging than we'd ever expected because you have to start a whole, like your website's brand new. It's got to build traction. And there's just all these steps that you just had no idea that you were going to have to do. And your name that's been Airtex for, 8 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
And how many places I had to change our name, like legally
everywhere.
It was just so much more than we ever expected.
Let me just tell you now, like, if you ever add plumbing.
Right. I mean, you don't know.
Great
idea. Let's do it. No big deal. And then we're like,
or then you add electric. You'll find it places and you're like, I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah.
We'll find things all the time. And you're like, what? And then you try to just like rip it off and it doesn't always work that way. And rebranding for us was like so emotional. It's an emotional journey. And you have to be in a really good spot to do it.
Yeah. I remember also I first met Cassie, I think at House Call Pro, one of those big meetups.
Yeah.
Okay. We were all on House Call Pro. And then there was this women's House Call Pro page on
Facebook.
I remember you like asking about branding and you were still going to stay with the old brand, but then you ended up completely doing a different
And I remember too, like when we showed our team the first time, they thought we were literally nuts. They did not like it. They were just like, what's wrong with what we have now? And we're just like, we're just changing. And it was way different than I expected it to be. I just thought, you're going to love this because we did this. And they're just kind of looked at us. I remember like that first team meeting, they're just staring at us like deer in the headlights. And I was like,
I thought you were going to be really excited about this.
But I will tell you the brand that we showed them that we had decided and the brand that we have now is not the same because we showed them and they looked at us like we were freaking ludicrous. And I was like, I had a panic attack and we were already deciding between two. And I called Dan and I was like, I need you to change. We have complete change of heart. And he's like, okay. And now on this side of it, thankful it went that direction. Yeah. But hindsight, hindsight, I wish I would have, but I have said a few times that we love our brand and we're thankful, and it is a solid brand and amazing. But what if Cassie and Oscar had rebranded, and we rebranded in May of 2020, if we would have rebranded in May of 2024, okay, and we're as mature as in business owners and things like that, would our brand look different? And it might have, but we were anyone that I give advice to that's ready to rebrand or do something, you really need to put yourself in a frame of mind that you can make really decisions for long term and not be like, we were so adamant on staying orange. And I'm thankful we did. Yeah. And we kind of dug our heels into that. But could we have considered other colors? Maybe. There's just things that you don't realize how emotional it is and how much you're attached.
I went through it too. It was a long process.
It is. But that's the thing about all of what we go through. We go through it and then we can share that experience with others. Like hindsight's 2020. Yep. If I could do it again, I would have done it this way. So now I get the opportunity. A lot of people ask us about our rebranding, and I'm able to share the story. And then especially with the renaming. So renaming is like, you have to do that so well. We made some mistakes and we had to learn from them.
Yes.
So we can't dwell on them, but we did make some mistakes. So.
Would you be open to share some of those? Because I think that's important for people considering it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be your online presence. Like what you have got to partner with someone who really, really has a great plan for you and knows how to transition from that, like one website to another. Yeah. Because you cannot just shut the other one down. And like they've known your name for so long. Yeah. And I think the presumption was that, well, you aren't that big of a company, but it had been around for 10 years. Yeah. So it had domain presence.
And you had a community presence that you weren't giving yourself credit for too.
That's right. And they were like, oh, you're not that big. So let's just, shut this one down and we'll just send them to this new, we literally disappeared. Our name disappeared because everything switched to that name through our GBP and through the website and all that kind of stuff. So nobody could even find us. So there's no way for us to.
So you didn't run two that one would direct to the other one?
It did, but people, they don't just automatically remember it. Like they go searching for it. They go find that old email or that old contact, and then they go Google it, and then they can't find your name anywhere because your name has been changed on all the directories and your website's been changed. And now it's shooting to this new name that even though you send out all the emails and send out all the cards
and then text message,
until they need it.
And then they look it up and they can't find it.
Yes. And then they think you've closed down. Yeah. So they go use someone else. I mean, so there's no way for us to gauge how much loss that was, but we know. We felt it. Yeah. Yeah. And that was not anything, I think nobody intentionally did that or anything like that, but
it's just definitely
suffered for it.
You can definitely change your name and successfully. Like you said, hindsight wish you had a better or a partner that was maybe experienced in that.
Exactly.
Because there has to be a transition and a plan.
Right. I didn't know what that plan should have been because I've never done it.
I was going to say, which we always want, but we don't know it until we've gone through it.
That's right. Exactly. And that's what I share with other people. I'm like, listen, renaming, rebranding, we don't regret that at all. But if we could have done it differently. And so take my story and take my experience. I hope you can do it differently. So
right. For sure. That definitely, I always it's the ADHD in me that I try to, when I hear a story, I think of something that has been a similar experience, immediately. And that made me think of when we added plumbing. It was the work was great, but the addition of how we looked, our presence and all of that wasn't as great as it should have been because we didn't know. And so when we added electric, it was a much different experience because we had lived that. So now when you add plumbing or electric, if you ever do, you're going to be set up for a good addition because you've already lived through that name change. Right. Because there's so much that changes and the way you communicate with a customer and those things. I think you'll find that it's never going to be easy, but that addition, you might be able to develop a better plan because you've lived through that name change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. And, we would have, I think, even been more pestering, if you will, to our database, even though it wasn't a huge database. I still would have communicated with them probably for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
Honestly.
You've got to.
If you internally,
I think so, because sometimes people only call you every
No.
2 years,
Right.
years or when something breaks down.
Right.
And then if you're gone, like you said,
right. And then we've
You
just
learn from that.
disappeared.
Mhm.
Right. And so all about the branding, but it's
Yeah.
good. Like
It's
these
all
are
good.
really good stories. And I had these conversations with Dan. Dan and I are very friendly. And I'm like, I'm sharing this with you. So you have that feedback.
100%, because
just so you can help your clients, because they care.
they
genuinely
do for
care
sure.
so
And
much,
that's one thing with the rebranding is they build it, but then what happens after they built it is reliant on your partnerships that aren't with them. So that's not a representation of Dan. It's just that relationship in Kickcharge. That's what happened after. But they can definitely, what I love about them is taking to where they'll be able to help steer maybe that is the vendor that you used for a long time, but they don't know this like we do. And hopefully someone listens and is like, okay, we need to take that advice. And because we all get, with our vendors, but maybe they don't have the experience in that.
Yep.
And it's important to have the stories of both sides, because it's not always, we love rebranding and we love seeing all of the amazing brands out there. We love what we've been able to do, but some people think that's like that silver bullet just because I rebranded in the market, and it's not. There's still so much work that has to happen after that.
Yeah.
And that's on you as the owner.
Oh yeah,
and
it's a ton of work. Just not just on the customer facing side, but on the business, the administrative side, with the government agencies and the licensing agencies, and then making sure you can keep your tax ID number and getting that updated and changed. And
So many things.
So many things.
Yeah. Your state license name and all that, depending on wherever you are.
Yeah.
But
and if you operate in multiple states, the state rules are different.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was like drinking from a fire hose for a while.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But the brand
It's
looks
true.
amazing.
But it looks
It
amazing.
does. I love it.
And I think what it does is just, and like Dan preaches all the time, it just elevates you. And so when you give the service along with it, the value improves that value. And then I see your vans everywhere. I see your vans everywhere. So
They do.
yeah,
For sure.
it was really good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so one of the things we wanted to talk to you about was recently we saw maybe like a presentation at a local thing in Lubbock for women about
Balance.
Balance. Yeah.
And none of us are great at that.
No, women certainly aren't.
What?
Yeah. So I've actually I wouldn't have thought, if you asked me a year ago, would you be on stage speaking in front of people? And so I had an opportunity if you're not familiar, but there was a conference called the E3 conference. It was a women's conference in the trades. I was asked to speak about my journey back in February. And then this other opportunity came up locally for a women's conference, and you can sign up, and they blind audition that you submit. And they chose me as a breakout speaker to share that journey with, so I got to do that two different times. And so, and I think they just spoke this morning here at the conference about imposter syndrome. And I thought, who am I to be sharing my story? Like, what significance is that? And so I had to really talk myself into doing those and feeling brave enough, but also, confident enough. But then I just had to tell myself, if just one person benefits from this, then that's going to be. And so that was the journey, honestly, to give those two presentations was more beneficial to me than it actually was to anybody
Isn't
else.
it crazy what you can force
Yeah.
yourself to do when you just make yourself do more?
Yes. And so, push me outside of my comfort
And I'm not
zone.
saying more as in like add more to your plate that is already full, but more than you imagined you were capable of.
When you push yourself to do the things you're most uncomfortable with is when you grow the most. I really, truly believe that. I mean, I'll never forget the first podcast I ever did, being interviewed years ago and being scared to death to even consider talking into a microphone. And then
Now you're co-hosting.
Right. Yeah.
5 years ago, I just remember talking to Travis going, I have to do this podcast and I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I don't do this.
Yeah.
And now like I'm co-hosting with Cassie and I really have no issue if Cassie was do you remember when I got called up on stage in Vegas?
Yeah.
Blind called up on stage.
And you're just like, what?
And I looked at the people at my table and I said, who did this? But then I'm like, all right, here we go.
And sometimes it's the best, like that's
Yeah.
the best push, you know? And then you walk off and you're like, who am I? I just did that, you know? And so what is that presentation like? What are you teaching?
Well, so I'm really teaching how to make yourself a priority, to make your mental, physical, spiritual health a priority. And because I had to go through that personal journey. So kind of a long story. So I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. But I was telling you guys that we officially started our business in 2016 and I had a health crisis. Well, I had a 7-month-old child and I had a stroke.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Right. And we were like blindsided by it. And thankfully it wasn't something that I had through much medical care and whatnot. There wasn't any like underlying crazy thing that I needed to be afraid of. Right. Come to find out I had an autoimmune issue that my body was like super inflamed and it just couldn't handle a tiny clot at the time. And it was thankfully that was not but I had to take care of myself.
Right.
Obviously it was the thing that will shut down organs.
It's pretty serious.
It's very serious.
Very serious. It's not like,
it was
oh,
very,
you know,
very
like
serious.
I broke my leg and it'll heal in 6 weeks.
That's right. And so it was scary. And it was like, you know, you just don't know what does this mean? And how does this look? And I'm a very highly driven person. And so it was just very difficult. And your identity and like, well, it holds you back and like all these things. So I had to go through a time of really focusing on my health for probably took me a year and a half or so to really feel a lot better after that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, my husband was building this business on the side, and then he needed my help. So I jumped back in about 2018, and I don't do things halfway. Like I just kind of can't help. I just take. And at that time I don't really feel like I hadn't learned what I've learned now to really make myself a priority. I just was like, you think you're, I guess, 10 foot tall and bulletproof and you can do anything. You feel good. So you kind of forget what it felt like not to feel well. And so then we went through the rebrand. 2022 was like it. Like that was a hard year. We had the rebrand, and we were growing, and just all kinds of things were happening. My kids were getting older. We're in a town by ourselves. So it's just my husband and I and our kids. And so we don't have like support system there. So we just handle everything ourselves. And so they're getting older and they're getting more involved. And it's just like you're spinning out of control on the hamster wheel, but how do you get off? And we had
Most businesses' online presence is boring. And by being boring, they're losing out on potential sales and customers. Being interesting and exciting is what draws customers in and gets them to buy from you. But it's hard to be interesting online when you're focused on running your business and taking care of your customers. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the key to unlocking the solution to your problem. Kee Hart Marketing can help take your business from boring to brilliant on social media. We can vouch for them. They run our podcast socials. If you want to have a strong social media presence that allows customers to know, like, and trust you, connect with Kee Hart Marketing at keehartmarketing.com.
Somebody in our life telling us that we counsel with, that Shauna, you've got to pull back. You've got to pull back, but it's so hard to do it. Like, how do you do it? Like, how do you make yourself until something happens? And so right after Christmas of 2022, I had another major, I knew it was coming and I could feel it. And I had kind of warned Josh and I was like, listen, it's coming. I don't know what and then New Year's Eve, because this advisor in our life, he's like, by January 1st, beginning of the year, you guys need to really make this a priority, not just for yourself, not just for your health, but your girls really need more of your attention. I wasn't giving them good attention, to be very honest, because my mind was always on work and I was rushing from work to get them. And you guys can relate.
Yeah.
I know
we can relate.
Mom, why are you on your phone all the time? Why are you messaging and emails or phone calls or texts or whatever? And so I just didn't feel like I was doing anything well at that time. It was all just halfway. But then my body just crashed again and I was having crazy heart palpitation. Anyway, we don't have to go into the details, but it was other stuff that was like, I can have a stroke. I can have a number of other
your body's telling you again.
And so at that point, I had to literally stop everything. And it turned into a month. I didn't even go into work at all, in January. And by mid-February, we went in on a weekend and cleared out my office and moved me completely home. I was working from home as much as I could, but I just had to completely stop. And then our team had to understand that it wasn't like you get a cold or COVID or something and you'll come be back in 10 days, not that kind of thing. And so since then, I have actually worked from home, but we didn't know what that was going to look like. We had no plan in place, but it's really worked out. Our team really rose up and my husband really had to rise up in ways that he didn't know he was going to have to. And then I had to make myself a priority. And so that's really what I talk about. I share that story and I share about we're not, like I said earlier to you guys, we're not martyrs. We're not winning some trophy by
killing ourselves,
literally, or possibly, and I had to think about that. I've got to be here for my team. I've got to be here for my husband and my kids. And I still work, but I'm working in all these capacities that I can from home.
Yeah.
You're still valuable to your team. You're still offering, everything that you did before in a capacity that's better for your health and your family.
That's right. But making that decision was not easy. And it was probably, honestly, I didn't come up for air probably for 6 months in how I felt physically, but also my identity and my self-worth. And it was really a difficult time for me, really dark time. Like I felt so insecure about
realize, and then
what I was doing and am I good enough? What is my team thinking? All of this self-doubt and fear.
I think we've all done it.
Yeah,
I can speak to that. I've been there. I have been there a couple of times in my life, and I know you have. And we question how whether we're being good parents
in
to
April
our kids and to our team.
2018, April. Oscar would probably know for sure because he lived it. I had a full nervous breakdown.
Yeah,
like when people say I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown and you don't really know what that means, like to the point they had to lay blankets on me to wait because the sensation of my body, all my nerves were shot. And I probably didn't do. I know I did not do as well as you did in that. I think I stopped for a minute and got myself under control, and then I still just took on more. Now I know now better that I can say I just can't do this right now. I'm getting way better at that. Or when you get to work and everyone's coming to you for something, and I used to just almost like kill myself to answer everything for everyone. And now I'm so much better at saying I cannot answer this for you right now. I'm not in the frame of mind to answer this for you right now. You're going to have to talk to me later about that.
I think it's a big growth thing when we can learn as women leaders to set boundaries.
Yes. And that's the thing is you weren't, right? And you had no boundaries, and then our boundaries. Okay. And I'm already trying to do everything for everybody. And I'm trying to prove myself as a woman, and I'm trying to prove myself as a woman in this space. And everyone's already told me I can't do this. And then that's just like constantly regurgitating. Yeah. And then I'm not a good enough mom. And no matter what, like someone told me once, like, if you're questioning if you're a good mom, then you are. Like the moms that probably aren't even thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, fine. But what else have I, I think like, what have I sacrificed for my kids in the name of building this for a life for my kids?
I think we've all said that.
Right.
What have we done?
It's a big price that we've paid. I mean, that's time that we can never get back. Right. We'll never get it back.
That's right.
So
all we can do is change going forward.
Yeah.
And, understand why we made the choices we did and go forward knowing like taking your kids to Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah.
And, it's a lot, but you know what? You have to do those things.
We have to so what do you think is your best advice for when you're feeling like that, like ran down? Not everyone can, you have to know your boundaries too. Like for me, if I went and had a home office, I would do nothing. I just already know. I would be doing laundry, in the pool.
Getting distracted.
I would be distracted, right? Yeah. I have to have the accountability of the office, but I know that about myself. Not everyone's the same, right? So you being able to work from your home and with your own boundaries there, that's amazing. What other things have you done that you think were really helpful in that time for you?
I take care of my body. I've lost 35 pounds. I needed to lose some weight. That was something that was important just for the inflammation and all of that. So I made my health a priority. I do Pilates. That's one of the things that with my type of autoimmune, it has to be kind of low impact and something, but it's my time.
Right.
I've made it a priority. Even if we're going to fly out later that day or something, travel, I'm doing my Pilates because I know this is good for me. It's good for my mental health. It's good for my physical health. And so I don't feel the guilt that I used to feel for making myself a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's huge. But one thing I did mention at this last conference was it doesn't have to cost money. This shouldn't be extreme. We're not going on strike. We're still I'm still participating in life. I'm still have a lot on my plate. I just have to realize it when it just recently I was overdoing it again for a minute and I caught myself though. That's the difference.
Well, that you're catching yourself.
I caught myself quickly and I was like, no, we're not going to do this again. And so I'm not signing up for that. Nope. I'm not signing up for that. We're just going to slow down a little bit for a minute. And I even came early to this conference and had a day of rest. And I would never do that before.
Right.
Treat myself.
Yeah.
That's
right.
I just don't do that.
It's so important that you do that or that we all do that or find what works for us. Right. I know for me, I would always say, okay, well, I can do this and this and this. But, I would just do things until I felt like I couldn't anymore. And then sometimes I had an episode in July of 2022 where I think my body, I didn't have anything major, thank God, but I was so exhausted and worn out. I didn't wake up. I didn't have a heart attack or anything, but my body just shut down.
Your body said, I need you to rest.
And I didn't hear my alarms. I didn't hear my phone. I didn't hear anything until I heard dogs barking, which were my dogs, because my coworkers came to my house because I was that person who answered texts until 1 o'clock in the morning, never didn't answer a phone call. And they were like, okay, she's not answering her phone. Like, what's going on? And I woke up and it was 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I don't know why I didn't wake up. I was so exhausted and run down that my body just said, if you're not going to take the break that we're telling you that you need,
then we're doing it ourselves.
Then my body just shut down.
And we have this, like, we talk about this more now, like my husband and I, we have one life, and like, what are we doing if we're pushing ourselves in these ways that is so unhealthy, physically, mentally, spiritually, all those things? What is it really worth? I mean, we're doing great things, yes, but we do have to reflect on that. I think it's just important to reflect on it.
We have to take care of the person that is doing all of these things.
How can we lead if we're not healthy?
Exactly.
So we've made, like, my husband started I'm just using him as an example, but now he's taking care of his body better. He started exercising, or he's watched. I think I've actually been a good example to him. And then I've got 2 daughters. Yeah. And look what they're watching. Yeah. Like, were they going to get in the same habit as me, that they've got to
kill ourselves
to be successful? Like, this is so,
I know exactly where you're coming from.
Changing this cycle.
And I will tell you, my youngest son is 18 years old, and he recently graduated from high school. He had a job working at Wingstop, and then he had his own landscaping business that he started 2 years ago. As a 16-year-old, he has 4 guys that work for him, and he was working in the morning doing his landscaping, and then he'd work until close at Wingstop. And this is recent. And he'd come home and he was exhausted. And this was probably 2 or 3 months ago. I said, babe, you are so tired. You can't do both forever. And he said, oh, no, I'm going to cry. You did it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. And then it's hard to recognize, the sacrifice. Like I said, she said, you brought up, we're going to Taylor Swift. We spent too much money on those tickets. Okay.
Who cares?
What does it matter with you when you die? And it was one of those like moments of
memories.
A conversation that I looked at Oscar and said, I just found these tickets and there's a couple of these. What do you think? Can we do it? And like, we're leaving from this conference and going there. Right. And someone's like bringing our kids to us in Dallas so we can leave with them. And he said, yes. And then it's like, I didn't allow myself to think anymore about it, or I would have talked ourselves out of it, to the point that I told the kids before I even had tickets secured. Wow. Because he was like, no, you got to tell. And I'm like, no, we're telling them because we're going, because
we're committing.
What more, like, it's fall break right now. I mean, last week when this was happening, and I'm seeing all these pictures of everyone doing something for fall break, even if it's just a pumpkin patch. And my kids that weren't at school went to work. Like they went to work for the day, yes. What more do they have to sacrifice? Because we were building this to be able to provide a better life for them and all these other things. And don't get me wrong, like, they've gotten some great things, but they've lost so much time with us because of this freaking job, right. And so I'm like, we're going to freaking Taylor Swift. And I mean, is that 48 hours, that one concert, 3-hour concert, going to change everything? No, but we have to be better at, like, we used to be so great at, going on fall break trips, going, at Thanksgiving time, doing this, I've always had this, like, I don't go on one trip before I have another one planned, like something to like escape and get away. I have nothing planned. I've just been going full bore, like, and what are we doing?
And these conferences are not vacations.
No, heck no.
I'm just saying, like, for the record team, they're traveling all over, whatever. It's not like,
no, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's
literally
time zones. It's getting up early. It's staying up late.
We started at 7 a.m.
Well, it's important, but it's a huge networking piece of our business. So it's important.
Right.
But it's not a vacation.
Kaylee was talking to one of our guys yesterday, and he was like, must be nice. And we were both like, buddy,
we work today.
We have been working all day. I was talking to someone that lives down here, and me and Oscar were telling him to come meet us. And he was like, I work today. And I said, buddy, so did we, and he's like, I know. He was just at a different conference with us, and he knows, like, it's full blown. Like, these actually, when you get home from conferences, you need a vacation.
I'm emotionally exhausted from them. I'm like, because you're just you consume so much
much
and talking.
Well, you consume so much information.
Which is really important. I mean, this is how we stick together as an industry.
Well, I've learned so many things and made so many friends. And really, it's multiple. Like you learn so many things, you make the friendships, but then you just have that tribe of people who get you. Like you just can't understand the same as someone else in the industry understands.
Yeah, I sent.
It's
no,
just
you can't. And then we all go back on Monday to do the same stuff again, or whatever. Right? I sent a TikTok that I had seen to I think Heather and Kaylee, and it was like this girl. She said when you walk into your hotel room after a conference that started at 7 a.m. and you have 30 minutes before your team dinner, and she like falls on the bed, and I'm like, that is so true. Like last night, did you go to was it Pilates or yoga this morning?
I wanted to, but then I didn't.
Someone said, "Are you doing the yoga at 6 a.m.?" I'm like,
no.
No.
Yeah, I was like, that seems like a really great idea. And then I just like, no way, I can't do it.
Right. Kaylee's over here this morning saying, "Oh, I got too much sleep," and I said, "Don't say that.
You'll never say that again." Yeah. One day you'll understand what we mean by saying you didn't. But I know what she means at the same time of maybe having like a headache and like feeling almost like hungover.
Amazing,
right?
But I mean, so many times we're like, gosh,
I need more.
1 more hour would have been better.
Yes.
And I got such a good night of sleep last night because Kaylee and I just
we are
out.
Yeah, you learn to not hang out so late. Whatever you can do.
I know. Tomorrow we had we were booking more podcasts, and they said, we were talking to someone, and they said, "Do you want to like record tomorrow?" And we were doing like we have to be here at 9:45. So then to do that, we'd have to do this, and then we have the event tonight, so we'd have to start at like 8. And I was like, no. Heather goes, we're not committing to something that we are going to regret later.
I just feel it. I can see.
It sounds so good in the plan.
Cassie's wheels turning, and I do the same thing. You overcommit yourself, and then you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
That's not even in the wheelhouse of something I can
like
even comprehend right now. And so I saw her wheels were grinding, and we were standing in the expo hall, and I just looked at her, and I'm like, we're not committing to this. Like, we're going to regret it. No.
And I'm like, okay, we said no.
And that's it. But that's okay. Again,
but we would have. I know we would have been like,
and then regretting it. Yeah, and then you don't go back refreshed. You go back tired to your people, and you're,
Well, and then if we commit to another podcast and we're that tired, we're not going to give as much as
they deserve.
It's all the guest deserves.
Yeah. Right, for sure.
We have to. I think we just have to assess that constantly and be aware of it. And that's what I'm just getting better at. So it's a slow process.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Yeah, it's really vulnerable to share that. And but I think it's such a wise lesson that brings so much wisdom that like you can help so many by being willing to share it, because I think I've met a lot of our listeners, and I think there's going to be a lot that find this really relatable.
Yeah.
Where you were saying, when you change the name of your company and you rebrand, maybe you can reach one person to help them. Right. Like this is the same thing, talking about, what you've been through and sharing your story and being vulnerable. There's somebody else out there who's like not at this conference because they just can't do one more thing.
They can't.
And they're going, but I see all my friends at this conference and I just want to be there so bad, but I just can't do one more thing. And they're feeling guilty. And then I hope they listen to this and they're like, like we've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely. The FOMO,
right?
And we missed Pantheon. We didn't go to Pantheon this year.
Yeah. And then it's hard. And then you're watching it and I'm like, but what if I could have pushed myself one more? And what if I should have done this? Yeah. But you've got to be able to get home. You've got to be able to remember what's important and then take the lesson and actually learn from it.
Yeah.
We're all really bad about, I think, going through life experiences and not always taking a lesson, there was a lesson in there.
Just try. Just put a little bit of effort
one of the
in.
things I shared with it doesn't have to be like an expensive thing. I mean, a walk, just taking regular walks is super healthy and good for your mind. It doesn't have to be anything. People think, oh, I can't do that. I can't take care of myself. Well, there's little things you can do, just carving time out for yourself.
You got to find what works.
Podcast or
walking.
But my favorite thing is walk. Just go walk. I think that's.
I started doing that recently with my best friend.
Vitamin D
in the morning. Just going for a walk. Yeah. My best friend of almost 40 years lives literally 6 houses from me, and we're both so busy. We see each other about as much as we did, maybe a little bit more than we did when we didn't live in the same neighborhood. And so she has a weird schedule. And now that I'm working with Cassie and I'm home and I don't have to leave every day, we started walking early in the morning. So it gets me up early, and and B, I get that time with her, and C, I get exercise.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome.
You have to find what works too, because like I'm not a bath. Some people are like, I'm going to go take a bath to relax. And I tried, and then I get in there and I'm like, so what am I supposed to do?
And then I get overheated. I'm like,
and then I'm sitting there and I'm like
10 minutes. And they're like, what was I doing?
What do I do in here now? Like, this is relaxing. This is not for me. I don't even know what I do to relax, probably. I have been watching my husband do way better at this. Like, his thing is going to mow or the tractor. And I'm always like, why are you always mowing?
Yes.
What? Like, that's his downtime.
That's right.
And he goes and he gets himself a drink.
I'm like, we could pay for this. And he's like,
I like it. And he does that. And then I'm like, he's like, I'm going to go like grade the gravel of the driveway. And I'm like, okay.
No one's bugging me. No one's calling me. No one's like,
it's like, and I can't hear my phone over the tractor. But that's like wisdom. That's like him paying attention that he needs the downtime. And I've started paying attention to him like, okay, I need to probably be doing the same thing. And my problem is what I think my downtime is scrolling on TikTok. And sometimes that's okay, but sometimes it will make your anxiety worse.
I agree.
Because of the constant moving.
Yes.
I just have to like,
that's a whole other conversation we could have a thing about.
Your anxiety.
Well, just social media and like the effects of that on our minds and all that kind of stuff. But that's that's a whole. That would be a whole other podcast. So
I gotta find Cassie a hobby. That's the next topic.
I bought golf clubs.
I bought some too, and one day I'm going to.
Yes, but see,
that's our plan. That's our plan.
Is it's like one day I'm going to go and play golf, and I've got all the things right, but then it's like work, and then our daughter's cheer, and then this and this and this.
Right now, it's not the time. I'm like, it will someday. Right now, it's not the time.
Yeah,
and I'm going to take lessons someday because I'm not going to just go out there and just try to wing it.
Kaylee's my lesson or my instructor.
Good.
Do it.
That's what I keep saying. One day you're going to teach me, Kaylee.
I'm going to bring my golf clubs when I come in November.
It's really hard for us to be still, though.
It is.
It's very hard because our minds are always going and we're always doing and we're always planning and we're always organizing the family and the family's. I keep the calendar, right? I do and all these things. So our minds are just going all the time. So it's just finding something where that's where my thing is. Like I've continued to do the Pilates thing and it's just like 2 to 3 hours a week total. But that is my time. And I'm just focused. I don't know. It just helps me release. I don't need to think about just something. Yeah. So,
well, I'm going to find a hobby. I'm going to be a professional golfer by next year.
Do it.
Kaylee,
we're going to hold her accountable to that.
Lady, I almost said NBA. And with that, I'm not going to be playing golf. The lady PGA, right? No, I'm just kidding. But that's my problem also though, is if I'm going to do something, then I feel like I have to be the best at it.
Right.
And if I can't devote the time to be the best at it, then I don't need to start it at all.
Kind of that way.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
At least I admitted that on air.
I get it.
So find something that you have fun doing and you don't care to be the best at.
Yeah. I had several people come to me afterwards though and reach out to me and they said that it was such a significant talk that they made some changes in their lives and they realized it, like the aha moment, like what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? I can make some changes and make myself a priority. So
yeah. Good. Well, we really appreciate you hanging out with us this afternoon and being vulnerable to share all that. I know that someone's going to hear this and you are going to help them in big ways.
That's all that we're here for, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To help each other. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple. And make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.